Good evening, welcome. You're watching The Last Word, and it's the biggest story of a long time. It's a test of India's resolve now, with Tahawwur Rana, a key figure in the 26/11 Mumbai attacks, in India now and facing a trial. Today, the National Investigating Agency began its critical interrogation with a 12-member team digging into the plot that claimed 166 lives. We seek clarity, does India, on Rana's role, his Lashkar-e-Toiba links, to uncover Pakistan's involvement on that tragic day. Secured tightly, the 64-year-old faces tough questions, each aimed at truth for the victims' families. 17 years later, India stands united, yearning for answers to heal the scars of Mumbai's darkest moment. This is our chance to reveal the full story behind the horror, bringing justice closer for those who suffered so much.
Fresh images showing 26/11 plotter Tahawwur Rana being handed over to Indian authorities by the United States. This as the Canadian-Pakistani businessman, a key conspirator in the 2008 Mumbai terror attacks, sits inside a high-security cell at this Delhi office of India's premier anti-terror agency, the NIA.
Fresh interrogation and years-old indictment are now peeling back layers of one of the most high-profile cases in India.
Rana's extradition has once again put the spotlight on the role of Pakistan's ISI in orchestrating the 2008 siege of India's financial capital. The NIA says 64-year-old Rana worked with childhood friend David Coleman Headley, a US citizen of Pakistani origin, to support Lashkar-e-Taiba, the Pakistani terror group blamed for the assault.
In a statement, the US Department of Justice said that after the attacks were complete, Rana allegedly told Headley that the Indians deserved it. The US DOJ said in an intercepted conversation with Headley, Rana allegedly commended the 9 Lashkar-e-Taiba terrorists who were killed while carrying out the 26/11 terror attacks in Mumbai.
In the first statement from the government, Home Minister Amit Shah said Rana's extradition was a big moment for India.
हमारी जस्टिस सिस्टम को हमारी न्याय व्यवस्था को उसे फेस करना होगा। महाराष्ट्र सरकार की ओर से और विशेष रूप से मुंबई पुलिस की ओर से एनआईए को जो भी इसमें आवश्यकता होगी वो सारी चीजें हम देंगे।
Some in the opposition said the UPA government also deserved to be congratulated for the extradition.
और भी अच्छा होता अगर अमेरिकी सरकार हेडली को भी भारत को सपोर्ट कर देती। हेडली को उन्होंने सपोर्ट नहीं किया, उन्होंने प्ली बार्गेनिंग करके हेडली को अमेरिकी जेलों में रखा है, जो पर्याप्त नहीं है।
2008 में होने के बाद 14 तक इनके सरकार थे, कुछ नहीं किया। मोदी सरकार डिप्लोमेटिक रिलेशन में बहुत ही टैक्टफुली हैंडल करके उनको लाया है। अभी क्रेडिट लेने का बात कर रहे हैं।
Over the next few days, the NIA and Intelligence Bureau officials will interrogate Tahawur Rana to uncover the missing pieces of 26/11 conspiracy. Eventually, a fresh charge sheet may be filed with more sections, some of which carry the death penalty. With Anushka and Saurabh, this is Radhika for NDTV.
Well, joining us now, Sandeep Undithan, a senior journalist and author who's extensively documented the 26/11 Mumbai attacks through his book Black Tornado. Very few have tracked this entire story closer than him, and we're very privileged to be joined by Rupin Doshi, a 26/11 attack survivor. Mr. Doshi, let me come to you first. You were in the Oberoi when the attack took place. Could you tell us what you saw, what you heard? You also lost a friend, as I understand it.
So we were meeting, all friends were meeting for dinner, and actually Neha and my wife and I were fortunate that we were entering the hotel. We had still not entered. We were at the door when this happened. We didn't even know what happened actually. We just heard some loud bang, and we thought somebody must be celebrating and bursting some firecrackers. And we just ignored it, and continued walking till about, 5-10 meters ahead. We actually saw people coming running out. And again, there was that general stampede kind of panic. Nobody really realized that this was gunfire happening. And then the staff of the Oberoi said, everybody please leave, kind of a thing. So we turned on and we ran. It's only after we were out of the precinct of the hotel, we realized that there was some battle going on. And then when we looked up, we saw that there was a lot, and the restaurant that we were supposed to go to was on the first floor. That's where our friends were. And then we saw that there was a lot of gunfire coming out of first floor and even the higher floors, 21st and the 23rd kind of floor. At that time, so initially fear didn't come to us. Just apprehension and that instinct that says get away from this. It's only after we went outside and we realized, that's when the heart started beating loudly and saying, "Oh hell, what's happening here? This seems to be serious." And what about our friends? And somehow, the phones didn't work and we were just not able to call anybody. And then the police came in very fast, I must say. And then we tried to tell them that please let us go in, our friends are there. And the police said, no, you can't go in, it's not safe for you. And of course, citizens are cooperative. And then on the walkie-talkie, the police heard that, this is a terror attack. And they shared that information with us. And, that's when I think everybody's hearts and limbs and everything just collapsed. And it was a sinking feeling and something that we have heard of and we have seen only on television and in the newspapers. It's come right to our door and the hearts actually stopped beating. So that's, real fear. So this is real fear. You see it happening in the movies, but this is real fear in real life. And then, after 5 or 10 minutes, when you get your breath back and your heart stops beating that fast, then that whole sense of anger comes in. That why are we being attacked? Who the hell is attacking us? Why are we not protected? And we are just good Mumbaikars doing our daily job, right? And we are not even able to reach out to our friends. So I think that whole the drama that happened in front of us and that fear, apprehension, desperation, helplessness, feeling that overcame us actually is not something that I would wish for anybody. Not even any enemy if I had one.
No, it's absolutely horrific, Rupin. Thank you for sharing that. I'll come back to you in a moment. Sandeep, I was listening to you yesterday on our channel, and one of the points that you mentioned is that there was every possibility that this could have resulted in upwards of 900, possibly 1,000 casualties or fatalities, because that was the target, right? It ended at 166, which is a huge number. But in fact, what the terrorists were trying to do is target much more. On what basis do you say this?
Vishnu, I'm saying this on the basis of interviews with the NSG and the fact that, if you remember, Ismail Khan and Ajmal Kasab, they lost their way at the BT station. The plan was for them to take hostages and climb up into the old, the heritage section of the CST station and hold out for as long as possible, like they did at the other sieges in Nariman House, Oberoi, and Taj Hotel. They lost their way, they climbed onto a foot-over bridge and they exited the railway station and they literally lost themselves, and they then went on this murderous shooting spree. They hijacked vehicles and all that. They were clearly lost. The plan was for them to climb into, the first thing was to enter the station at rush hour, kill as many people as possible, kill them in cold blood, and then take survivors and go into a hostage situation kind of thing upstairs into the VT station. So that would create a fourth siege. The idea was to have at least 4, if not 5 parallel sieges in Mumbai, hold out as long as possible, and they were looking at very high body counts. So that was the end game, really, Vishnu. And that was for all of these terrorists to die fighting, 10 of them. And of course, they did the ultimate deception plan, which was to have fake ID cards, the red sacred kalavas on their wrists. It's exactly like a retelling of that 1943 World War II Operation Mincemeat, where they planted a headless body with fake papers on it, if you remember, off the coast of Spain, to tell the Nazis that there was an invasion happening in Italy, whereas it was happening somewhere else. So that was the deception plan that was employed. The idea was for a very, very high death toll, horrific fatality rates, and 10 dead terrorists. Of course, that didn't play out as they planned, and we know what happened after that. Ajmal Kasab was captured alive. The Marine Commandos entered the Taj. They saved several lives. And of course, there were a series of incidents that actually, as you said, 166 is a very high death toll, but it was nowhere near what they had planned, which was in the several hundreds, possibly even approaching 1,000.
Sandeep, we already know the involvement of Pakistani generals who were supervising this on the basis of what we've learned earlier on. We do have any number, hours of telephone intercepts of handlers in Pakistan coordinating the attack in Kabad House. We've got Tahawwur Rana, we've got confessions of David Coleman Headley as well. What are we going to get further from Tahawwur Rana which we don't know already?
Well, Vishnu, the 2611 conspiracy, if you can compare it to a very large building, we have only started climbing the first few floors of that building. The top floors are still dark. They are not illuminated yet. And every time we climb one level, we hear something else. We, get an aspect of the operation we didn't know. And the last time this happened was when David Headley was interrogated in the US in 2010 by the NIA, where he gave these astonishing revelations of how the ISI was literally monitoring every single movement of the LET. Every single LET leader, he said, had an ISI handler. There is no way the Pakistan army did not know what was going on. That is the level of involvement of the Pakistan army with the LET. But having said that, Vishnu, the one big question that was raised by David Headley in 2010, and we still don't have the answer for, more than 16 years later, is what happened in March 2008 for the LET to suddenly go with a very spectacular terror attack. Headley told the NIA in his interrogation that until March 2008, the plan was for the LET to strike only the Taj Hotel. It was supposed to be a very small attack. They were supposed to infiltrate via land through Nepal. It would be just a small group of 2 or 3 terrorists. They would attack the hotel and then they would either run away or they would be captured or killed. But something happened in March and suddenly he said the plan changed. They had, planned these multiple sieges. They wanted to create a spectacular terror attack of the kind that actually unfolded on 26/11. So if you go back to what happened in March 2008 in Pakistan, what happened really? And it's very interesting because in February, you have Pakistan's first elections since Musharraf took over. And you have a civilian government in charge. You have Zardari and Nawaz Sharif, a coalition government that's run by the two of them, that's in power. And possibly, this is again in the realm of speculation, that the military feared that a civilian government in Pakistan would start making peace overtures towards India. And this is something they wanted to disrupt. This is again in the realm of speculation, but as with many other things with 26/11, this could well have been the fact. And that is the reason that suddenly this small little attack that was supposed to have been only targeting the Taj became this, massive attack targeting multiple sites with 10 terrorists, creating very high body counts. So that is one question that we still don't have the answer for. Even David Headley says, I don't know why they did that.
But
and the fact is then
let me ask you a little bit about David Headley. Tahawwur Rana and he studied in the same school. Both were in the Pakistani army. Tahawwur Rana was a deserter, right? And he went off to Canada, got Canadian citizenship. Then what happened? How did Headley and Tahawwur Rana reconnect? And how did Headley, in a sense, persuade Rana to be part of this huge conspiracy?
Well, it was David Headley reaching out to one of his old buddies, and that's how we know the fact that you mentioned that they were both in the Hassan Abdal school in Abbottabad, and that's how they reached out to each other. And, so, Rana's role is not still very clearly defined, Vishnu. How did this guy who was suddenly in the United States, link up with David Headley, who's a known drug smuggler, and later on a DEA agent? We still don't know the full story on that. Rana is a deserter from the Pakistan army. He had cut all links with Pakistan. He fled the Pakistan military. He was a doctor in the Pakistan army. He fled to Canada. He's created a whole new life for himself there. there is speculation that he could possibly have been an ISI mole in North America, that he would actually been a sleeper agent who was there and who was activated precisely for this reason, to look for somebody who could carry out a recce for the 26/11 attack and then, give them plausible deniability. The idea was for David Headley to come in with his American passport, his American name, do the kind of recce that he did, and then go back without arousing any suspicion. And that is possibly one question that Tahawwur Hussain Rana will have to answer. How did he and Headley get involved in this? And how quickly was Rana sucked into this jihadi network that he, after 26/11, he started planning even bigger terror attacks like the ones in Copenhagen. Yes.
Who were the handlers, the immediate handlers of the attack when it took place? Who were the voices that we were listening to in those recorded intercepts?
There are several elite handlers, Vishnu, and these are the handlers who trained the terrorists through their entire training in Pakistan. So it's exactly like the relationship between, a dog and his master. So every dog answers to one master. All of these handlers were the guys who had actually put these terrorists through their paces, so they would listen to them very carefully. But the most mysterious of those handlers is a guy called Sajid Mir, who again is believed to be an ISI guy embedded in the elite. And he's the guy, if you remember, Vishnu, that voice, the most chilling of all the voices, the multiple handlers that we heard in those intercepts, the most chilling voice is that of Sajid Mir. And he switches between English and Punjabi and Urdu, and he's, he's encouraging the terrorists to kill as many hostages as possible. He's consoling the hostages and telling them, don't worry, you're going to go home and celebrate Shabbat. And then in the same breath, he tells the terrorists, just bump them off. So those are the kind of handlers that we had. But then we have reason to believe that behind the handlers also, there were a whole lot of ISI people who were monitoring these attacks in real time. So even the handlers were just cutouts. They were the interface between the ISI and the terrorists on the ground. So you had the entire hierarchy of the ISI that was monitoring this operation in real time. It's an operation of the kind that we never seen in the world at that point, Vishnu. I mean, today you have several such attacks in Paris. You have the Westgate Mall attack in Kenya, all of them borrowing from the 26/11 template. But back then, who was to think that you would have this control room set up by terrorists with a mixture of ISI and elite handlers, directing terrorists from over 1,000 miles away, telling them what to do, what positions to take, how to negotiate, what to do, how to attack the NSG as they entered the hostage, the siege locations. All of these things was, it's almost science fiction at that time, but we now know this is exactly how it happened. And this actually leads credence to the fact, Vishnu, that 26/11 was actually a military operation carried out by non-state actors. But the whole planning, the resourcing, the training, everything was a military operation. The fact is that it was just carried out by the elite.
No two ways about that. Even the way in which the reconnaissance took place on the ground well before the operations. Rupen Doshi, you've been listening in to what Sandeep, has been saying, and he sort of tracked everything, in terms of how it happened, who the conspirators were, who the terrorists were, what the goal was. Could you share with us a little bit more about your experience on that particular day? The people you saw being killed around you?
So it's pretty gruesome talk about it. Because fear was the key on that day. You saw injured people. I don't know how they got injured. Whether they fell down or they were hit by a bullet. But I do know that the manager of the restaurant on the first floor, Bukhara or something, she actually saved a lot of lives by preempting when the terrorists entered the room, the restaurant. She preempted and she shouted and asked everybody to lie down on the floor. And actually, these guys, terrorists, they masculine, whatever they call themselves, but they're basically cowards. They shot people at the Oberoi in their backs, including women and children. And this lady, the restaurant manager, she also, while trying to run, fell down. And she fell down amongst bodies, dead bodies. And she pretended she was dead. So the terrorist just put his leg on her head and went forward. was thinking that she's dead. So this is the kind of stuff that has happened. This is the kind of fear that's generated. And we are normal people here. We're not military or police, right? We're not used to these kind of things. So I think that that whole fear psychosis that was planned by them actually worked, and it came true. And the rest of the city, apart not just those who were involved, but even the entire city and country got scared, right? So I think they met their targets. Maybe they didn't kill as many people as they wanted to, and thank God for that. But fear, this whole fear psychosis that was created, an environment of fear that was created, uh, actually shook us up. The people, of course, to a great extent, and even the government. So the government acted, and we've been fighting terrorism for decades now, and this kind of a thing at home, and these are all good people, right? So many business people, international people, who have nothing to do with hatred or war or politics between the two countries and stuff. So targeting innocent people actually infuriates you.
No, it's
If you have
absolutely
guts.
shocking, and it's just such a tragedy. But hopefully there will be justice now. I'd like to thank you very much, sir, for being with us, and Sandeep Unnithan for explaining all of those
Thank you.
details. Thank you very much indeed. Well, one of the big themes now, apart from the horror that we've seen as a result of 2611, fortunately, Tahawwur Rana is back, is the larger issue that we're looking at from an international standpoint, that of tariffs, which is a huge battle now taking place internationally. So if the entire tariff issue is of concern, the trade issue between India and the United States of concern. Earlier today, I spoke to Dr. Mukesh Aghi, President and CEO of the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum, to give us a sense on the impact of tariffs on India, will that take place, and whether the overall target of bilateral trade between India and America, which is a whopping amount, is realistic or not. Here's what he told me. Well, joining us now for his views on the trade talks between India and the United States, also the potential impact on tariffs going forward. Mukesh Aghi, thanks very much, sir, for being with us. Firstly, we are talking at a time when there's been a bit of a respite, particularly for India among several other countries. Trump has rolled back the announcement of tariffs to a large extent. What is the immediate implication of this for the India-US trade equation, as it were?
Well, you have to understand that Trump is using the tariff as a negotiation ploy with other countries. And in regards to India, India was in trade talks right after the Prime Minister's visit to Washington, D.C. And you had people like Brendan Lynch from USTR come down to India, and they made a lot of progress as far as the tariff goes. So the 90 days respite is much more for the Europeans and other countries. I think India has made progress. Now we're waiting for the US side to respond to some of the issues. And I believe in the next by few months, India should have some kind of agreement with the United States in regards to trade and tariffs.
What are the sectors in India that you believe may be impacted by tariffs should they go back up?
So I think you have to understand, while US is saying bring the tariff down, US tariff on its own agriculture goods is extremely high, 80, 90%.
Exactly.
And so you can't basically lower that in the US because the farm lobby, which is the basically the red states where the MAGA voters are, will rebel. So what we are seeing is the focus is more on manufactured goods coming out of globally into the US. And that's where the tariffs are being put in, hoping that high tariff will incentivize companies that are manufacturing in the US. But overall, I think when you look at it from an India perspective, the biggest export India has services. There's zero tariff on that. The next big one is pharma. That's also zero tariff. Yes, there's an impact on gold and jewelry and other stuff. But then energy, which is a big chunk of the export, there's zero tariff. So I think overall, India is in a very good position to take these discussions forward.
India and China, I beg your pardon, China and the United States are now locked in a tariff war. Is there an opportunity for India in this?
No, absolutely. Let's take the example of apparel and garments. India's basically tariff coming out of India is 26%. China has gone to over 125%. Bangladesh is around 34%. Vietnam is also up there in the 70s, 80s% itself. So India has an opportunity to basically grab that vacuum and work with the companies in the US to provide a reliable source of apparels to the US market. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity for Indian exporters to leverage that.
The overall goal, of course, is $500 billion by 2030. Now, both countries want that. But you've got this tariff hiccup or hurdle, as it were, irrespective of which way it goes. Do you believe that this comes in the way of India and the United States achieving that target?
No, absolutely not. I think it provides India an opportunity, especially what's happening with China, to grab some of those exports. And I think that's where India has to proactively look at what are those exports coming out of China into the US, start talking to the US companies, and get them to start looking at India from that perspective. You have to understand one thing is overnight you can't move manufacturing to the US. We don't have the people resources to come to those plants and start running those plants itself. So there is an opportunity for India to leverage some of the manufacturing into India and keep on driving. If nothing else, expand it. You look at Apple. Apple has to deal with 125% tariff coming out of China for its product. India is much lower. So the question is how do you expand Apple's current capacity of iPhone 16 from 25% to 50% or higher itself. So I strongly believe India has a tremendous opportunity in this crisis, and we should seize it at this moment.
Do you believe that the personal equation between Donald Trump and Narendra Modi is central in pivoting the economic relationship between the two countries?
You have to understand there's no, I call loyalty when you deal with nations, only in trust.
Yeah.
Yes, the chemistry does help during time of crisis, during times of bumps. But overall, both countries will have to drive what's good for India, what's good for America. So yes, chemistry does help, but that's not pivotal when you drive the relationship.
In the immediate run, given the trade talks that have been taking place, how confident are you of substantive breakthroughs which can result in that economic relationship being transformed?
I think you have to understand one thing. This is not just about tariff. This is also about tremendous opportunity for government of India to bring in some extensive reforms in its bureaucracy, in its basically regulation itself, because one of the constraining factor of exports from India to the rest of the world has been its internal, I call the license Raj, internal regulation. So regardless of what direction tariff goes, I think India has to seriously look at how it basically opens up the economy to the ground level so you're able to compete on a global basis. India's exports compared to GDP is one of the lowest in the world. And if we want this economy to be a $10 trillion economy, exports will play a very pivotal role.
All right, Mukesh Aghi, wonderful speaking to you. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on the trade process between India and the United States in the broader context of tariffs now also taking place. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.